Hello, judges. Hello, folks. Thanks for coming out tonight. North Coast Impact Visualization Services creates the next generation of visual aids for engineers and scientists who want to explain their work to the rest of us. North Coast Impact's multimedia visualizations use video, animation, and photocompositing to articulate complicated engineering, scientific, and development projects to a broader spectrum of the public. These cutting-edge visualizations are used for public relations, promotions, funding, education, and outreach. North Coast Impact bridges the communication gap between infrastructure designers and the rest of us. In the past, designers needed to communicate their projects to only a few select people to get the project going. The general public was not involved. Times have changed, and projects have to be understood and approved by the public in order to implement them. But project concepts are complex and difficult to clearly articulate, and traditional methods of communication, including technical reports and public meetings, leave a large number of people behind. The National Science Foundation found that only about 10% of us are actually interested in applied science and technology, even though these things surround us in everything that we do. To engage more people, the internet was identified as a key player for contemporary communication, with multimedia, illustrative processes, and interactivity the best methods for articulating scientific information. Because of population increase and resource depletion, we are on the precipice of major change. Lots of updates and expansions to our infrastructures are required, which will be very expensive and require intense public support. Infrastructure change will reach all parts of our lives: transportation, food production, energy, health technology, telecommunications, waste management, water treatment, remediation, just to name a few examples. In order to take on the future, the American Society of Civil Engineers determined engineers need to get better at communication and become primary communicators to the public to explain upcoming challenges and proposed solutions. North Coast Impact's media services are here to help engineers and scientists communicate to us through powerful visual communication methods. There are two basic service types. There's video vignettes, which offer short, professional quality video pieces, which combine narrative and documentary elements with animation to show project processes, timelines, concerns, impacts, backgrounds, and goals. Before and after photocomposites use computer compositing to create the after view of a project based on a before site photograph. I have set an initial price rate of $25 an hour for general media services with a sliding scale based on the Bureau of Labor Statistics average wage information. I have also developed a couple of competitively priced introductory signature products to help get the ball rolling: the 2-minute web vignette and before and after photocomposite set. Services and products are used for websites, for presentations, compliance reporting, and in various outreach packages. Traditional media companies can't tap this market. This is a highly specialized media niche that requires a unique set of skills. In addition to being creative, you must understand the psychology of visual communication and know how to make great-looking videos. This niche also requires deep understanding of the technical and conceptual principles of engineering, science, and problem solving. I have 3 sets of skills to make this business a success. I have 3 bachelor's degrees. One is in fine arts, one is in film and video production, and one is in environmental resources engineering. I've also obtained my engineer in training certification, which is the first step towards a professional engineer license. While obtaining my engineering degree, I witnessed extreme interest in using video to promote engineering concepts and was commissioned several times by HSU engineering faculty and the American Society of Civil Engineers to create promotional engineering videos. The bottom line is that I possess skills not only for a successful traditional media production company, but also the additional skills needed to tap the engineering and science market that other media companies just can't reach. North Coast Impact can be fully started with the Economic Fuel $25,000 investment. The largest portion of startup cost is for equipment. I will be getting a computer, which will be built by Renaissance Computing in Arcata. I'll need a couple of software suites to do video editing, animation, graphic design, and photo compositing. I'm going to need a digital still photographic camera, and I will need video accessories for the high-end professional digital video camera that I already have invested in. The remaining initial costs include other startup expenses, with advertising being the largest. In order to address the feasibility of this business idea, I developed a survey and sent it to local engineers and scientists. The survey responses helped me target 3 initial revenue streams. The first stream is the local engineering firms, and there's 4 of them: SHN, Manhard, Laco, and Winslow & Kelly. These firms each have several offices located about this region, around the state, and also around the country. And Winslow & Kelly was recently acquired by GHD, an international firm for international contacts. Another revenue stream is research organizations, and most of these are affiliated with HSU and the public agencies around here. This is where discount rates come in because they have slimmer budgets overall. Using the survey responses, I developed a revenue scenario for the North Coast Impact 2-year financial forecast. The revenue scenarios include signature products and custom media services for the 3 revenue groups. Overall, this type of business has pretty low fixed expenses and includes mostly rent and utilities. I've also scheduled an annual trade show or conference depending on what's going on for the year. The major difference between overhead costs from the first year, which is 2012, and the second year, which is 2013, come from my planned move to a downtown Eureka office from my home office as preparations for business growth. Additional fixed expenses include a $2,000 monthly owner draw, 20% of all revenue withheld for taxes, and $5,000 paid as an economic fuel investment tax on the first year. The net income for my first year, 2012, is projected at $26.5 thousand and $33,100 for the second year, which is 2013. Overall, my net income becomes more consistent across the second year as I establish more client connections. Overall, my cash flow is stable and recovers quickly after paying my first year of taxes, which included the economic fuel tax. To summarize my financials analysis, Impact is a low-risk, high-benefit opportunity. The first-year break-even point is just beyond the first-year gross revenue, which implies the break-even point can be obtained early on in the business's life. And in a snapshot after the second year of business, the assets to liability ratio and the liabilities to equity ratios are both healthy, indicating a robust business. As an indicator of profit growth, my projected net income increased 19% between the first and the second year. North Coast Impact Visualization Services is the perfect opportunity for the $25,000 economic fuel investment. It's viable, it's profitable, desirable, and obtainable. North Coast Impact has high growth potential. As it grows, there is a significant local labor pool of video production, animation, and engineering folks trained at CR and HSU to fold into the mix. They won't have to leave the area to find work in their field. Infrastructure changes demanded by our future will only be successful with the use of media-based communication to broad audiences. This is what North Coast Impact does, and it will be the benchmark business for Humboldt County, leading California and the United States in innovation and creativity for the 21st century. Thank you.
So Erin, great presentation. Thank you very much. In your business plan, you list a total of about $1,400 for both working capital and contingency fund, and frankly, that seems pretty slim. It seems like you could burn through that pretty quickly. And my question to you is, what happens? What are you going to do if you do?
Okay, first part of my answer to that response is that my contingency fund is set low because my estimates for capital equipment they're very conservative. I'm expecting to not really have to spend that much on the equipment, but it was it's a small buffer. And if I burn through the money, with good record keeping and keeping an eye on what's happening, there are options to find extra capital. I can put some investment of my own earnings into that, and I can sort of offset the losses or the lack of money in that case. So I have some resources I can tap.
There's always Dawn.
Oh yeah.
May I ask a related question?
Thank you, Don. Yes.
There's a number of expense items that seem to be missing, such as additional insurances, travel expense, stationery. And so I would look at your overall expenses and saying that they might be missing some items. Can you comment further on the depth of your additional funds?
Are you referring to additional funds being missed overall or in the capital costs?
In the expenses in your year
The
one and year two.
fixed expenses.
Not in your fixed expenses, in your variable expenses.
Oh, in the variable expenses. Could you repeat the question again? I'm sorry.
There is a number of variable expenses that might be missing, such as some additional insurances, stationery and supplies, travel, gas. If that's the case, can you talk further about how much additional funds you have set aside for a rainy day or for unexpected expenses?
Sure. Okay. Certain items like travel can be negotiated within a contract with the client. Stationery and things like that, there are small budgeted amounts in the fixed expenses for things like stationery, things like DVDs, things like tapes for the camera. And so what I'm anticipating is to be frugal and to be mindful about what I'm using and not burn through my resources. And I would be able to also use my own funds from a job that I have, my day job, so to speak, and be able to reimburse myself for my.
And how deep is that additional wealth? How much are you prepared to put into the company if necessary?
Well, it's a hard question to answer at this moment. I would not. My budgeting, I feel that my budgeting is pretty good for this type of a scenario where it's trying to find as much information as you can, really not knowing, you know what I mean? It's sort of this fictitious thing, even though you're trying to make it as real as possible. So I feel like I've covered a lot of the expenses. And so what I'm expecting is that I can be on the ball enough where I won't be sort of blindsided by huge amounts of cash flow needed. And if it were the case that I needed a lot of cash flow, there are economic organizations around here that the SBDC, there's counselors, there's people that I can find that will give me suggestions. Loans are potential, even though that's not the ideal thing for anybody to take a loan out, but that's something for sure. And then there's family, there's community members that may be able to also help inject some investment.
Thank you.
Ouch. That was not a question.
I do not have a response.
All right. So, given the small population that we have here up in Humboldt County and the fact that you will be dealing with basically 4 engineering firms, could you touch on whether this is really going to be a business or just a contract job? And do you really think that $50,000 is a realistic number for income from this? And why?
The $50,000 income?
I believe in your second revenue in year 2, $51,000.
Oh, for the revenue.
Yeah.
Okay. I can understand your concerns
Sorry, I'm
for
talking
that.
gross revenue. I apologize.
Yeah, right. I gotcha. Although there's only 4 firms in the area, they are doing projects not just in this area. They have feelers that reach out to multiple places in the state, in the country, and engineers in general are a closed circuit of people that fraternize with each other, and so it's very easy to build up a client base quickly just by word of mouth with doing good work and having people recommend my work. So I feel that is an absolutely perfect base to start with, and I feel that it will be able to allow me to propel myself into, and I do feel that the revenue stream for the second year is realistic based on the fact that the engineering community is so close knit.
How many jobs are you estimating you'll have?
What time frame, or what do you
I'm
mean?
talking about contracts.
How many,
In-
like
in
per
the
year?
Per year.
Okay, I know you've probably seen this slide already, but I want to go back to
Apparently I wasn't paying
I know it was hard
attention.
to cruise through this slide, the 10-minute constraint. I figured my revenue streams based on responses from the surveys I sent out. And one of the engineering firms had an actual estimate of, well, actually two. I met with one engineering firm. They wanted to meet with me face to face. And so we discussed what their visualization products were at the moment and what they would be interested in. And so I felt that was very promising. And then the second engineering firm replied to me with one of the questions of the survey with an actual number, 4 to 5 visualization products per year. So I used that as a base for this. And this is going to be, like the before-after composites are pretty quick products to do, even though they're sort of like the cash cow. I have the product competitively priced at $2,000 for a set, but right now they're really going for like $2,500 or $3,000 depending on who's doing them. So, and it's about 15 to 20 hours of work to do one set of those. And those are very common. And so it's the video stuff, it's those web vignettes that are sort of like the new upcoming thing that is something that the engineering firms are interested in, but yet they haven't really seen it. It's so new. I mean, they know what web videos are, and they know what video blogs are, and they know this kind of thing, but it's really like tapping into that and getting them to take on that and sort of like flourish with that. So the before-after composites and the web vignettes are sort of offset, where there's three before-after composites per firm per year on the first year, and also one web vignette, which I felt was a pretty conservative estimate of what they would need based on the responses. And then there was a growth from year 1 to year 2 of one extra set of before and after composites and one extra web vignette overall, and that's just for the local one. And then there's a website that I'm going to be building, and there's going to be connections from that, and also from the international GHD firm. I'm assuming there's going to be some sort of connection there too. Did I answer your question? I didn't really answer your question. It's a hard question to answer, really.
I can be a little bit challenged when it comes to understanding some of this lingo. So I was just wondering if you might be able to walk us through an actual situation as far as taking a very specific project that an engineering firm may have, and they meet with you, and then they need your services. So can you just kind of take us through from, what your initial meeting would be and what that would entail, and then what your finished product might look like?
Sure. Okay. Let's go down the scenario of the web vignette. Okay. I'll meet with the client. They tell me about a project they're doing. They show me some of the work that they've been doing. So,
okay, but give me a specific example.
Okay, let's say Richardson's Grove project, Caltrans. How about that? Perfect. Okay. Here's an example. This is actually a very relevant example with the whole Caltrans map controversy thing, right? So they say we've done these maps, but we're seeing that they're being challenged and that they're not portraying what we really feel. People aren't seeing them the way that we want them to see them. We feel that they hold enough content, but we're being challenged, so we need to redo these things. Please help us. So we have a consultation and we figure out what the best way is. I feel the best way to deal with this sort of thing, since it's a very controversial issue, is not the before-after photo composite, since the map wasn't working, and since you have a very polarized view of what the project is. A web vignette is a perfectly suitable product for that type of a situation. And so an interview with them discussing what their major points are, what are the strengths of the project, what type of goals do they want from it? What are the issues that they foresee with it? So then you're making a list of all of these. It's like a plethora. It's like a range of different topics on it, the timeline of it, the cost of it, and then also looking at the maps they have, and then discussing with them how they feel the people who are challenging what their deliverables are saying, the sort of issues that these other people are bringing up. So how can we bring what they have over to what the concerns are and address the concerns and tie it all back together? And so there would be additional maps made. There could be some before and after photo composites, but I would think there should be some animation showing the actual project before and after, but with some motion going on. And so you can actually see vehicles moving through it. You can see what trees are being extracted. You can see what is remaining. And interviews of both Caltrans people and the opponents of, or the concerned citizens of the project. And so you tie it together into a public relations piece that addresses the multifaceted issues about it.
May I interject a related question?
Yes.
You're using a lot of words to describe what could be a fantastic service. However, as you put in your executive summary, in bold, in all capital letters, a picture is worth 1,000 words. Why don't we have an example of the two services that, or three services that you're providing up there in this presentation tonight?
Answer number one, I need the equipment to do this service justice. I don't want to give you a sample of work that is not of quality, that does not actually show what you need to show in order for that picture to be worth 1,000 words. This stuff's complicated, and so you really need to have the proper visualization tools to make the proper visualizations. What I tried to do on this slide of work, which I'm going to try to find it here, is, you're seeing, it's a terrible slide right here. You can't even see what's going on here, but video work is in the middle, some video work that I've done, and there's some, this is some samples of some work. There's some photo composites on the left, which are not engineering related. It's totally artsy. But some photo compositing on the left. There's some video work in the middle, which was all engineering related, commissioned stuff. And then some visualizations from engineering projects that I worked on the right. And it's hard to see with the top one, sort of like this map, an overview map of a storm drain. And there's a drawing, it's sort of like an artistic rendering with some technical stuff of a solar-powered house, and then there's a multiple cell fish rearing raceway down at the bottom. But I understand what you're saying, and that's a challenge with this particular type of a business plan and and the whole 9 yards is that it requires some specialized software, and it requires some specialized equipment that is just, I'm not able to do it at this point. I don't have that stuff, and so I'm not able to give you what you'd like to see.
I'm having a really hard time understanding what the finished product would be
okay.
From what you have here.
Right.
But you've answered the question. Thank you.
Okay.
So it sounds like a really cool service that you have. But what's the economic incentive for the engineering firm to spend the extra money to get this? I mean,
Number one, their own personal portfolio. They're showing what their work looks like and how it functions way more than a list of projects on a website. Like you might go onto a website and you say, these are current projects we're working on, and you see nothing about it, or you might see a photograph of like tractors moving around on in some dirt. So this is it's a more explicit way. It's a way to work up their own projects. It's a way to show that they're cutting edge, and so they would gain more clients from it. They would gain more public trust from it, and so therefore they would see a better, they would see more profit from it in the end, more work.
Let me ask you a kind of real business question, because you flash back to the income screen, the profit. Okay, so
yeah.
When you show your net income, does that recognize the owner's draw?
Yes. Well, yes, it does. The owner's draw is actually within the fixed expenses. No, I'm sorry, that's incorrect. But yes, it does. It's, I know that was a blunder.
Okay, so let me
it does.
let me
The owner's
follow
draw
up for
is
you.
included in this, yes.
And I appreciate that this is an exercise in spreadsheets, but
Mm-hmm.
like in December of the first year, you have a total income of $1,600, and you're showing an owner's draw of $2,000. And I'm not quite sure how you do that.
Okay, sorry for the confusion about that. The net income is $26,500, and so so it's $24,000 of that is taken out. So no, it does not show the 2,000. I'm sorry for the confusion. So that is not including the owner's draw.
All right, thank you.
Can I ask a question tying back to that?
Sure.
You had mentioned that you have a day job right now, which will help to maybe support any additional cash needs into the business. How are you planning to transition? I mean, when would you anticipate that you would be full-time with this business?
Definitely after the first year. According to my projections, the move to the downtown Eureka office is one point where it's going to be full-time, and I anticipate it will be full-time before that. There is even a possibility that I'll have to hire somebody to help me before the end of the first year, depending on how the alignment of the projects come along, because it's sort of erratic, and you have timelines and deadlines that kind of creep up on you, or that you get thrown something quickly and you have to quickly finish it for somebody because they've had a last minute deadline, so then it gets sort of like pushed down the pike, and then you get the really last minute deadline. And so I'm anticipating I'm going to need some staff quickly. And so to answer your question, it would be full-time first, and that would probably be within I would imagine the first 6 months, really.
Hi, Erin.
Hello.
I like the concept very much. I've been at companies where they spend thousands of hours coming up with a product or a service, but then can't communicate it to people. And I think that's the service you're going to provide, is the ability to communicate that great product to people. When I read the surveys that were in your business plan locally, it seemed like a lot of the local customers were hesitant for different reasons, either because they didn't have the money, they didn't think their detailed engineering product was suited for visualization, or because the product or service they were doing was very proprietary and they didn't want to share it with someone from the outside. How do you plan to overcome this? And if your customer base is limited locally, can you go outside the area and provide service?
Okay. Some of the responses that you're referring to are types of engineering companies that I've eliminated from my initial partnership projection, and so those would be smaller engineering companies. And so they've pretty much said we're only doing stuff where we do like permitting, we do analysis for permitting and stuff. So we don't need the visualizations. And so those people are not ready at this point, and they do not have the money to do that, and so that's correct. I keep on coming back to the firms. I keep on coming back to how we've got some small firms here that have feelers out, and from there it sort of stair steps to larger firms and larger firms. And there's some very, very large firms in the U.S. and internationally that are dealing with some pretty high profile, big projects. And that's really where this service, it's the easiest to implement this type of service because they're high stake projects. And around here the high stake projects aren't there. We really need this type of service here to get the high stake projects going, which we're going to be needing in the next 10 or 20 years. We're going to have some pretty high stake projects here. So I think my presence and my constant my kindling of the connections and affirming how this, keeping myself there present and allowing them to really understand that I'm here to help, and that it's something that is sort of new and scary to them, but it makes a lot of sense. I think that's going to help a lot with those people who are sort of hesitant or saying we don't really have enough money for this kind of thing. It's the uncovering the desire or the need if it's one that is not totally recognized yet, even though it's pretty obvious that it's needed.
So you plan on staying local with your service then?
Absolutely. I sort of see this service being like not the anti-Hollywood cinema, Hollywood studios, but sort of like the opposite. So like a studio up here where it's videos and visualization services done. It's a studio where you have tons of people working you have different departments, and it's stuff that's made. It's not entertainment. Entertainment's important, but it's the important stuff, and this is the factory that would make it right here. Thank you.